I talked to Professor Dirk-Jan Kamann about the research group and the workflow you work on. As far as I know, the coronavirus it's revoked your original plans, but you didn't give it up and you continue your research. My first question is about your team members. Who are the team members?
Yeah, thank you very much. Well, we started full energy more than a year ago on a topic called gamification in decision making under uncertainty on buyer-supplier relationships. So I invited people both from Kamann, colleagues in marketing, supply chain management and tourism, and foreign colleagues from Italy and several in Holland, several colleagues specialized in supply chain management and some colleagues specialized in running experiments for gamification. So we started up very enthusiastic with presentations that was in June 2019, and we built a very nice framework and a very nice model. We were ready to do the experiments, 2 rows of experiments, both in Holland and here in Kamann, and then it happened. So we realized we could not work with groups anymore. We could not do the things that we wanted to do. And we sat down and said, okay, then let's run a survey, what's going on? But then we asked ourselves, what do we ask people? What goes on in people's mind? So we started thinking about building up a complete new methodology in trying to find out what's going on in people's mind, what leads to certain decisions. So out of the group that we had, I asked 2 persons to join a new team to definitely develop this new project, which was Dr. Petra Gurat-Nemet from tourism and her PhD student Kitty Hiesel. And for PhD students, this is a nice opportunity because they get training in methodology, in statistics, and related to the real world. So they both were very enthusiastic, and we just finished last Friday the last interviews. So it's something what you may call academic resilience. We didn't sit down and kind of weep and do nothing. No, we restructured our reality and our methodology into something new that actually would be unique, because there are very few people who do research during a long-term crisis. We know a lot of research that went on after something happened, an accident, an incident, a catastrophe, but not during a half a year or a year taking. So we decided to started research in the period the end of May till the end of October with 3 interviews each in 11 hotels. So we have a good scope of what's going on.
What was the original topic of your research, and how did the COVID pressure change this topic?
Well, the original topic was decision making under uncertainty. So we never had dreamt that we would get a situation with so much uncertainty as Corona. The problem was that, as I said, we could not work with groups anymore, so we couldn't run experiments. So we had to find a completely new methodology that would be able to do even under the lockdown situation, so that we could use video recorded interviews, that we could use software that would translate or transcribe the oral interviews into a document, and we would need software that would be able to analyze those documents into a proper way, following certain we call it grounded theory. So your idea of the real world improves step by step by step. That's why I did 3. So it really affected the methodology, and it really affected the topic. Maybe less in the sense that the original was also decision making under uncertainty, and this was really extreme. And actually it went a step before the decision making, it went into sense making. So how do people make sense of the things that's happening? What's playing a role? What makes them trigger to do things? So that was a change in the topic and a unique opportunity.
Could you explain what is unique in your research?
I think it's unique in that it is a new methodology combining other methodologies, that it gives us an idea of what goes on with people, how they make decisions. It's developing new measures to check, for instance, we have 3 people who interpret and code the interviews. Do they come to the same things or not? So we have special coefficients and indices developed to check on how accurate is our observation. How much do we agree? How much do we not agree? And what does it mean? So we move from, you have a text, you mark it, and you say, okay, what does it mean? And then you sit together and say, okay, what does it mean? What do we see happening here? And then we find, for instance, solidarity, loyalty on the one side, and pretty ruthless behavior on the other side. And what did it mean? And we came to the conclusion that the most important element for survival was flexibility and adaptability. And so we developed models. What causes this flexibility and adaptability? So we have in those 3 steps that we did in interviews, each step resulted in a particular model, and each following step gave us more insight in what happens there. Why do people suddenly feel relief? Or why do we observe increased anxiety? What is the cause for that?
What are the practical benefits of such a complex research like this?
Practical in the sense that when students or PhD students or master students participate, for them it's a perfect training, because there's no better training than a real experiment in a real world where you don't know what's going to come up to you. It's practical in the sense that for policymakers and the government, it's important to know what determines the survival of companies. We found, for instance, that 97% of the supply chains are still intact. So only 4 or 5% of the suppliers in the hotels that we interviewed, the 11, only 5% of the suppliers dropped out, which is actually, in spite of all the stories that you read, quite good. So also the government can use it for fine-tuning their policies in subsidizing wages to make sure that the employers and the employees make a good policy for flexible work. So I think it's both for academia, for the students it's interesting, and already have, in case in February we can pick up our original team, already have students that say, when you're going to do that, we would like to be an assistant on the project. So it's also a showcase for students that, hey, we study at an interesting university where we can do real research and we can help to do it. And they may be stimulated to do their master's thesis and do their PhD. So that's the practical value.
Thank you for the interesting conversation, you professor. And I hope so you can continue your research, and I wish best luck.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to participate, and it's a great place to work.
Thank you very much.
I'm very happy here.
Enjoy.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.